All right, you want to know what Oregon coast towns are growing? You want to know what Oregon coast towns are shrinking? We're going to talk about it in this video. Stay tuned to learn more. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Clem with the Oregon relocation team coming to you from the Oregon coast. And in this video, we're going to talk about towns on the Oregon coast that are growing and towns on the Oregon coast that are shrinking. The Oregon coast is a really popular destination for people to move to who are looking for natural beauty, people who are looking for a mild climate, and a lot of people are moving from out of state, in particular from a lot of warmer areas, and people just want to be at the ocean and enjoy the natural beauty and everything that comes along with that. Well, looking at new census data, or rather population estimates from census data over 2022 to 2023, some of these towns on the Oregon coast aren't necessarily growing, some are actually shrinking. So again, in this video, we're going to talk about where people are moving from the most and where people are moving into the most right now. Oh, and hey, if this is your first time to the channel or you've been here and you haven't already and you want to get more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. All right, when we look at these population estimates as well, the data is lagging. So we're looking at estimates from 2022 to 2023. Here we are in 2024 currently, and what happened the previous year isn't always necessarily an indicator of how things are trending. You know, things can fluctuate year over year, but a lot of people do ask us, what are the most popular destinations? Where are people moving to? A lot of people ask us, hey, what are the less desirable areas? What are some of the areas that we should avoid? Migration and population data is certainly something we can point to that is just purely objective. Hey, people are leaving this area at this rate, we're moving into this area at this rate, etc. So what are the towns on the Oregon coast that are shrinking the most right now? I'll give you the top 5 or bottom 5, depending on how you want to look at it. And at the top of this list is Coos Bay, and North Bend is just behind it. So Coos Bay and North Bend are two towns, beautiful towns on the southern Oregon coast, really popular areas for people to move to. Some relative affordability when you look up and down the Oregon coast. Some of the most affordable real estate is in this Coos County, Coos Bay, North Bend area. So a popular destination for a lot of reasons for people to end up moving to. But from 22 to 23, Coos Bay lost 225 people. North Bend lost 155 people. So collectively nearly 400 people. The population is down. All of the towns on the Oregon coast are going to be pretty small. So, you know, when you start to get into the hundreds plus or minus, that actually represents a relatively significant percentage of the total population. But again, Coos Bay and North Bend are really desirable places to live depending on what you're looking for. Again, affordability seems to be the biggest draw for a lot of people that we work with, and we're mostly working with people, you know, moving in from out of state, moving to the Oregon coast from out of state. So everybody has different considerations, but again, Coos Bay, North Bend certainly checks a lot of boxes for a lot of people. It is a more populated area. You're not right on the ocean, so a lot of the residential development isn't necessarily right on the ocean. You have this big, beautiful bay in Coos Bay that does provide for some really nice scenery and landscape, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a little beach town like a lot of towns on the Oregon coast. So it's larger, more populated, more dense in that way, not directly on the ocean. Some people might point to crime, things like that, homelessness. There's certainly some issues like there are in most places to some degree, but that's something we do hear cited, and something that, if we're thinking about, okay, why are people moving out of Coos Bay and North Bend, would probably point to something like that. All right, next on the list is a very similar scenario where you have Astoria, the northernmost town on the Oregon coast. It lost 200 people over 2022 to 2023, but you also have Warrenton just to the south of Astoria, basically connected to Astoria in terms of the population. Warrenton lost just over 100 people, 102 people over that time as well. So you're looking at Astoria and Warrenton losing a little over 300 people, actually represents a larger percentage than what we were seeing in Coos Bay and North Bend, as far as the population decline. And Astoria and Coos Bay actually have a lot of similarities. Really kind of older towns, older settlements, older real estate development, older homes, really cool old historic homes and properties. They have a little more of an urban feel, again, when you're comparing these towns to other towns on the Oregon coast. Astoria has a ton of character, rich history, really, really cool area. It's beautiful. Similarly to Coos Bay, not directly on the ocean necessarily. Up in Astoria, you're right at the mouth of the Columbia River, and you see the barges and the ships come in and big, beautiful views of the Columbia River going out to the ocean. But again, you're not really set right on the beach. So I've always actually compared Astoria and Coos Bay as pretty similar towns in a lot of ways. It's just the feel of the town and what you get. Astoria is up closer to Portland. I think there's more influence from Portland and kind of a larger population center in Oregon, being so much closer to Astoria. A little more eclectic, a little more artsy. You have the breweries and that being kind of a big part of the culture there in Astoria as well. I think you do hear some of the same critiques about Astoria as you do with Coos Bay, with maybe a relatively higher crime rate, which is really going to relate more to property crime, car break-ins, theft, things like that. In terms of a crime rate, you might see Astoria on the higher end when it comes to towns on the Oregon coast, and at least that's certainly something that somebody would see online, whether they're looking at Reddit or looking at like FBI statistics, through a lot of the different websites that are available. But Astoria, again, it's a super cool town, and it's very desirable for a lot of reasons. It's definitely not for everybody. It's not a place where we see a ton of people in terms of our clients, being drawn to Astoria, and probably its proximity to the ocean and beaches, is a big part of that. Okay, next is Seaside. So Seaside lost 100 people from 2022 to 2023. Seaside is a town of about 7,000 people, so it's a smaller town than the other towns that we've talked about, aside from Warrenton. But again, Warrenton is really kind of connected to Astoria. But you go south of Warrenton, you hit Gearhart, and then you're right into Seaside. So if we look at Astoria, Warrenton, Gearhart, Seaside collectively, this whole northern Oregon coast, Clatsop County area, we're seeing a population decline over 2022 to 2023. So Seaside is definitely removed enough and different enough from Astoria to be kind of talked about separately, whereas Astoria and Warrenton are connected to each other basically. Seaside isn't super surprising to see on this list. We don't hear from our clients or people who engage with us, we don't hear a ton of interest about Seaside, and it's very much a touristy town. A lot of towns, most towns on the Oregon coast, have some element of kind of a tourism aspect to what's offered and how the town operates and what it's going to be like living there. But Seaside is like the idyllic seaside town, with the arcades and candy stores and t-shirt shops and all the things that you would envision, antique stores and art galleries. And it's right on the beach, right on the ocean. It's about 90 minutes from Portland, depending on where in the Portland area you're coming from. A lot of people drive out to Seaside for the weekend or even for the day. So again, really, really heavy on that tourism aspect of things. And that's one of the biggest things for, at least, for people we work with, that kind of turns people away from Seaside. But it's a beautiful little town. It has a ton of character. It's a fun place to spend an afternoon, no matter who you are. But not super surprised, again, to see Seaside on this list, but it is interesting when you look at it in that Clatsop County, Northern Oregon coast, in that context, if you're looking from Astoria down to Seaside, that whole area with that population shrinking. And when you look at that area of Clatsop County, and then you look at Coos Bay and North Bend, not as dense up north where you have these different towns, but pretty similar population-wise, so a more populated area, and that just might be something that people are looking to get away from. There's certainly that aspect of things. That's definitely a common thread between the areas up north and Coos Bay and North Bend. And when you have a larger population, when you have more people, when you have more density, again, you can run into some of those issues related to crime that you might hear about when you're researching these areas in particular. Okay, so what are the towns that are growing on the Oregon coast? Well, there's nothing on the Oregon coast growing as fast as the towns we've talked about are shrinking. So I don't know if you can draw any conclusions from that necessarily, but the areas we've talked about are shrinking at a faster rate than the areas that are growing at. So the two towns that are at the top of the list are Lincoln City and Newport. And since 2020, both of these towns have grown by about 200 residents. And that represents about a 2% growth in population. Again, people are coming and going, so it would be interesting to dig into this some more and see what the net numbers are. I can tell you that we get so many people reaching out to us looking to move to the Oregon coast, and a lot of people have done a lot of research, spent a lot of time in Oregon and at the Oregon coast. Some people not as much, but all paths do seem to lead toward Lincoln County. It may not be the top of everybody's list, it may not be the only destination that people are seeking out, but it ends up being on most people's lists. So when we look at Lincoln City, and then Depot Bay, smaller town to the south, but then Newport, and then Waldport south of Newport, and then into Yachats as well. Those are all towns that are really attractive to a lot of people for a number of reasons. So it's not a surprise to me in working with people who are actually moving to the Oregon coast and having a small hand in some of this population growth, assisting people moving to the area. Lincoln County is definitely a popular destination. So Newport grew a little bit more than Lincoln City. The numbers are so consistent where it's easy enough to talk about these two towns in the same breath. They're in the same county. They're about 30 minutes apart. They're about the same size exactly population-wise. Different landscape, different industries. You can get different things in different areas depending on what you're looking for. I mean, Newport has a little more of like the commercial development. It's a little more bustling. It feels a little like there's a little more energy there. And it's hard to put a finger on exactly what that is, but you have the Aquina Bay bayfront. You also have Nye Beach. So you have these different commercial areas that are really fun to hang out in, and if you were living in Newport, you would certainly be spending some time in these areas. Lincoln City's a little quieter, a little more laid back, but you have like 7 miles of uninterrupted beaches. I would say there's not many places on the Oregon coast that can compete with Lincoln City when it comes to beaches. So if proximity to the beach, spending time at the beach is top of the list for you, Lincoln City might edge out, or I would say certainly does edge out Newport, although Newport has great beaches as well. So again, pretty comparable as far as looking at these two towns. Most people we end up working with, if Lincoln City is interesting, then Newport's an option, or vice versa. All right, the only other town that did experience growth over 2022 to 2023 was Florence. Population grew by 40 people, so maybe not at quite the rate of Lincoln City and Newport, but Florence is the next large town south from Newport. It's about 10,000 people in Florence, same as Lincoln City and Newport. This is another town that a lot of people that we work with are really drawn to. There are some notable differences in the landscape, in what's offered, the beaches in particular. Florence is not going to be the best town for beaches and beach access, but it has a lot going for it. There's a ton of natural beauty here, the Siuslaw River. You have these really cool different neighborhoods. You have a lot of HOA communities, gated communities, really nice little developments that, again, have more of a laid back, kind of clean and safe feel to it, whereas Lincoln City and Newport in particular, again, just feel busier, more bustling, more dense than somewhere like Newport that does feel a little more spread out. You also have these ocean lakes like Mercer Lake and Sutton up north, or Siltcoos or Wohink down south, and that creates a really unique opportunity for the Oregon coast to be on or near a lake. So all of these towns have their own unique offerings, and if you want to learn more about some of the towns that are growing, some of the towns that are shrinking, or all of the other towns kind of in between that are staying stagnant that we haven't talked about in this video, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video. We can talk more about it. We can talk more about your move, your timeline, your budget, put together a game plan for you, and talk about what towns might be the best fit for you. If this video is helpful, make sure to hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. And if you want to get more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. As always, we really appreciate you watching, and until next time, we'll talk to you later.